Hello, Upper Iowa students. Welcome to week 2. We are going to be diving into the ASCA National Model this week, in particular, section 1, Define. When we are not doing live group Zooms together, I will be providing most weeks instructor videos where I'm going through a slideshow that I've put together to kind of organize the week's focus and activities, give you a glance at what's next or assignments that are upcoming. But also I feel like with the course school counseling, there is so much to teach you that is more than just what you're reading off the pages of the books and articles that you will be reading, and more than what I can present to you in 1 month's time of a live group Zoom. I feel like in each week, I need to be giving you kind of spurts and bursts of information that I think are important things for you to know as you continue through the graduate program and into the world of work in school counseling. So obviously with the ASCA National Model, school counselors design and deliver school counseling programs that improve student outcomes. The ASCA National Model, the book that you're reading, A Framework for School Counseling Programs, outlines the components of a school counseling program that is integral to the school's academic mission and is created to have a significant positive impact on student achievement, attendance, and discipline. And you're going to hear those 3 things, attendance, achievement, discipline, several times throughout this course as we talk about goals and annual student outcome goals in particular. The ASCA National Model guides school counselors in the development of school counseling programs that are based on data-informed decision-making, that are delivered to all students systematically, that include a developmentally appropriate curriculum focused on the mindsets and behaviors of all students needed for post-secondary readiness and success, as well as closing achievement and opportunity gaps that result in improved student achievement, attendance, and discipline. Some advice with the ASCA National Model is to remember that the purpose of the ASCA National Model is to do more school counseling. It provides kind of a framework and a path for us to be able to do the right work most effectively that benefits kids. Also to keep it simple, that we don't have to do this all perfectly or comprehensively at first, where we're doing every single component of the ASCA National Model in ways that's good to learn it in the graduate program and then be able to implement it in small, realistic steps as you go out into the field. The ASCA National Model is even more important when you have a very large caseload. So luckily here at Pete, I have a pretty good ratio where it's about 1 to 340 students, where some of our elementaries in Cedar Falls have a ratio of 1 to 600 students. And so obviously with bigger schools, it's really important to be advocating for appropriate duties as a school counselor, but again, implementing the national model. The national model also gives us tools as school counselors that can help us take things off of our plate because we're advocating for the right roles needed for the school counselor in the school system. But also it encourages us to utilize the experts in our district, especially our data people that can help us in making those data-driven decisions. So for our week of focus, you guys, we're going to start, this is kind of my table of contents. We're going to do an overview of the national model, dive into section 1, Define, get to our discussion question this week, and encourage you to respond to your peers and also give you a hint at what's ahead. So where we were in the national model and where we are now. The national model has changed a few times since around 2004, but the framework of the ASCA National Model consists of 4 components, and it always has. But now they are define, manage, deliver, and assess. The 4 themes, as you can see where we were, in addition 3, the 4 themes of leadership, advocacy, collaboration, and systemic change, they no longer appear with our newest 4th edition. On the right, they no longer appear around the edge of the national model diamond, but instead are woven throughout the model to show that they are integral components of a comprehensive school counseling program. And we'll be talking about those themes later in this course. Implementing the ASCA National Model requires leadership, advocacy, and collaboration with a focus on systemic change and outcomes. Examples of these themes are highlighted throughout the text, and you will see them as we read section by section, and they give practical examples of how the theme relates to that section. In the 3rd edition on the left, where we were, you'll see that the 4 components were nouns, but now in the latest 4th edition, these components have become verbs to emphasize what the school counselor is doing within each of these components. So you guys will notice that the 4 components create a 4-pronged approach where all parts are leading into each other, essentially. So the first, define, which we're talking about today, includes student standards and professional standards, both of which we'll go over, like I said, today. We want students to meet the student standards as we professionals will follow the professional standards. We also manage the model, where we focus our program efforts through our vision and mission, and program planning through other model components, such as creating annual student outcome goals, completing the annual administrative conference, which is essentially a formal meeting with a school administrator in the first 2 months of the school year, having an advisory team. So again, that's kind of a team of people just for the school counseling program that are providing feedback and kind of guiding some of the decisions made. And that we as school counselors are utilizing weekly and annual calendars and sharing that with our stakeholders so that they can easily see our annual and weekly schedule. Deliver. We are delivering, which is our direct services, where 80% of our time is spent directly working with students, whether in small groups, individual counseling, or in classroom curriculum. Indirect services help us refer, consult, and collaborate with others, and that work indirectly benefits students. Lastly, assess our program to make sure we can measure and show how students are different as a result of the school counseling program. It provides a way to reflect on what has worked well and what needs improvement so that we can continue to make our program the best that it can be. All right, so getting to define, we have 3 sets of school counseling standards that define the school counseling profession. These standards help new and experienced school counselors develop, implement, and assess their school counseling program to improve student outcomes. School counseling standards for students and professional practice serve as the defining documents of the school counseling profession. And you will see that all of these standards are linked here on this slide. The ASCA student standards can be aligned with initiatives at the district, state, and national levels to reflect local priorities. To operationalize the standards, school counselors write or select measurable learning objectives that align with specific mindsets or behaviors, which then become the foundation for classroom instruction, appraisal, advisement, and counseling activities addressing student developmental needs. The learning objectives directly reflect the school counseling program's vision, mission, and goals, as well as the school's academic mission. Aligning it as much as possible to your school counseling program, to your building, but then also to your district is even more supportive of doing the right work. All right, so continuing student standards. The 36 ASCA student standards are broad standards that identify and describe the knowledge, attitudes, and skills students should be able to demonstrate as a result of a school counseling program. School counselors use the standards to assess student growth and development, create culturally sustaining strategies and activities, and build a program that helps students achieve their highest potential. All 36 standards can be applied to any of the 3 school counseling domains of academic, career, and social emotional development. The school counselor selects a domain and a standard based on the needs of the school, the classroom, the small group or individual. The standards are arranged within categories and subcategories based on 5 general categories of non-cognitive factors related to academic performance. These non-cognitive factors include persistence, resilience, grit, goal setting, help seeking, cooperation, conscientiousness, self-efficacy, self-regulation, self-control, self-discipline, motivation, mindsets, effort, work habits, organization, homework completion, learning strategies, and study skills, among others. We hope to address these standards in our comprehensive school counseling programs during a student's K-12 experience so that they can get all 36 standards by the time they graduate. It's best to approach these student standards from a K-12 perspective and at what level they hit or circle back to certain standards. This takes work if you work at just a high school or just an elementary school because you have to crosswalk with your other building levels to get a full K-12 perspective. So for the first category of mindset standards, these include standards related to the student's psychosocial attitudes or beliefs about themselves in relation to academic work. These make up the student's belief system as exhibited in behaviors. So the second category is our behavior standards, and these standards include behaviors commonly associated with being a successful student, learning strategies, self-management skills, social skills. These behaviors are visible. They're outward signs that a student is engaged as well as putting forth effort to learn. The behaviors are grouped into three categories, like I just listed. So for learning strategies, these are the processes and tactics students employ to aid in the cognitive work of thinking, remembering, or learning. For self-management skills, this is the continued focus on a goal despite obstacles and avoidance of distractions or temptations to prioritize higher pursuits over lower pleasures. And lastly, social skills. These are the acceptable behaviors that improve social interactions, such as those among peers or between students and adults. These student standards with our three domains, the ASCA student standards can be applied to our three broad domains of academic, career, and social emotional development. These domains promote mindsets and behaviors that enhance the learning process and create a culture of college, career, and life readiness for every student. The domain definitions can be defined as follows. So the academic development, these are standards guiding school counseling programs to implement strategies and activities to support and maximize each student's ability to learn. For career development, these are standards guiding school counseling programs to help students, one, understand the connection between school and the world of work, two, plan for and make a successful transition from school to post-secondary education or the world of work, and from job to job across the lifespan, a lot of transition. And lastly, the social emotional development. These are standards guiding school counseling programs to help students manage emotions and learn and apply interpersonal skills. To implement the ASCA student standards, school counselors implement these through the following steps. So first, identify the need. School counselors identify a specific student challenge found in the school's student outcomes. Like I said, achievement, attendance, discipline. Challenges could include underperformance and achievement on standardized test scores, grades, credits being earned or not earned. Also overrepresentation and discipline. Number of minority students, maybe with offense categories or not in rigorous courses or getting consequences. Also, lastly, higher absenteeism. So with late arrivals, early departures, kids who are chronically absent. Specific developmental stages or differences may also serve as the basis for school counselor interventions. If the issue is related to underlying systemic issues, the school counselor advocates to change policies and guidelines and practices to address the systemic issues under it all. Second, collect supplemental data. So school counselors collect this supplemental data, soliciting opinions, beliefs, insights from stakeholders, most likely teachers who are directly involved with students experiencing the identified challenge. These stakeholders include, but are not limited to, parents, teachers, administrators, and students themselves. Step 3, select a student standard. School counselors select a specific mindset or behavior that best aligns with the data and the factors suggested in the supplemental data. Are students lacking empathy? That is one of the social skills, for example. 4, write learning objectives aligned with the student standard. School counselors operationalize the selected mindset or behavior by selecting or writing a measurable student learning objective that will help students attain the standard. The learning objective or objectives identify the specific knowledge, skills, or attitudes students need to attain that stated standard. And you guys will see more of that as we get into lesson plan templates and how we are showing our data results. 5th, create pre and post-test assessment. And you guys will see this later on in this course when we talk about assessment. School counselors create a pre and post-test assessment based on the student learning objectives that are based on selected student standards. Step 6, select or develop strategies. School counselors select or develop strategies, activities, and/or interventions that facilitate attainment of these learning objectives, of these student standards. Step 7, administer a pretest. School counselors administer the pretest to determine the baseline knowledge and skills of targeted students. So this is like the first thing you do before you go in and teach a classroom lesson for 3 days. For 8, delivered, selected, or designed strategies. School counselors deliver the strategies, activities, or interventions to the targeted students. So I was just in the classrooms a couple of weeks ago with 7th graders. So we started with a pretest. We had content for 3 days. And then step 9, we administered the post-test. School counselors administer the post-test at the end, assessing the student's acquisition of the knowledge, skills, and hopefully attitudes. And lastly, we're going to reflect for improvement of practice. School counselors reflect on the process, identifying what might be improved when next delivered, because again, our data doesn't always give us glowing results. It's good to be able to know what didn't go well and what did go well. And when we talk about professional standards, ASCA's ethical standards for school counselors, ASCA specifies the obligation to the principles of ethical behavior necessary to maintain the high standards of integrity, leadership, and professionalism. They guide school counselors' decision-making and help standardize professional practice to protect both students, but also school counselors. The ethical standards for school counselors were developed in consultation with state school counseling associations, school counselor educators, and school counseling state and district leaders, as well as school counselors across the nation to clarify the norms, the values, and the beliefs of the profession. When you look at ASCA school counselor professional standards and competencies, the ASCA school counselor standards and competencies outline the mindsets and behaviors. You guys just heard that with student standards, but we have mindsets and behaviors for professional standards as well. And those are the mindsets and behaviors that school counselors need to meet the rigorous demands of the school counseling profession and the needs of pre-K through 12 students. So these standards and competencies help ensure new and experienced school counselors that were equipped to establish, maintain, and enhance a school counseling program addressing academic achievement, career planning, and social-emotional development. These standards and competencies can be used in a variety of ways, including school counselors being able to self-assess their own mindsets and behaviors and formulate appropriate professional development plans. They can also be used for school administrators when it can possibly guide them through the recruitment and selection of competent school counselors, or develop or inform meaningful school counselor performance appraisals. Lastly, it can also be helpful to school counseling education programs like this one by establishing benchmarks for ensuring school counseling students graduate with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to develop a comprehensive school counseling program. And hopefully after this school counseling course, you will be one step closer to that. For the ethical standards, let's break this down. Ethical standards have 6 sections that include responsibility to students, responsibilities to parents, guardians, and school and self, school counselor administrators and supervisors, school counseling intern site supervisors, maintenance of standards, and lastly, ethical decision-making. And you guys will read through this in section 1 of the book. But essentially, the ethical standards, the purpose of the document is to serve as a guide for the ethical practices for all school counselors, supervisors, directors of school counseling programs, and school counselor educators like myself, regardless of level, area, population served, or membership in this professional association. It is also purposed to provide support and direction for self-assessment, peer consultation, and evaluations regarding school counselors' responsibilities to students, to parents and guardians, and other stakeholders like colleagues and professional associates, school district employees, communities, and the school counseling profession in general. And it can also be used and purposed to inform all stakeholders, including students, parents and guardians, teachers, administrators, community members, and courts of justice, even of best ethical practices, values, and expected behaviors of the school counseling professional. Now, how to implement the ASCA ethical standards. For step 1, practice the standards and practice them in accordance with the ASCA ethical standards for school counselors. For step 2, adhere to legal responsibilities of the role of school counselors. 3, adhere to the ethical and statutory limits of confidentiality. 4, fulfill legal and ethical obligations to families, teachers, and administrators. 5, consult with school counselors and other education, counseling, and legal professionals. Step 6, resolve ethical dilemmas by employing an ethical decision-making model. Model ethical behavior. And lastly, engage in continual professional development. Now, for the professional standards and competencies, like I said, this is modeled after our student standards. We have mindsets and behaviors as well. So for professional standards, our mindsets are standards that include beliefs school counselors hold about school achievement and success. And our behaviors are the next category where these are standards that include essential behavior school counselors demonstrate through the implementation of a school counseling program. So those 3 categories are professional foundation, direct and indirect student services, and planning and assessment. So with the mindsets, going back, Although it may be possible to measure these beliefs, the mindsets are more readily recognized through the behaviors a school counselor demonstrates as a result of implementing a comprehensive school counseling program. The behaviors, like I said, include professional foundation, which are the essential skills that are the basis of a school counselor's professional orientation. The direct and indirect student services are the interactions that are provided directly to students or indirectly for students in collaboration with families, teachers, administrators, and other stakeholders or staff. And lastly, the planning and assessment. These are activities necessary for the design, the implementation, and assessment of the school counseling program. And then how to implement the ASCA professional standards. Okay, step one, conduct and analyze self-assessment related to school counseling professional standards and competencies. So for example, complete the annual ASCA school counselor professional standards and competencies assessment, and that can inform professional development goals. Step two, stay current with school counseling research and best practices. Read school counseling journals for the latest research and magazines and also websites for the latest in best practice. For step three, personal reflection. Use personal reflection, consultation, and supervision to promote professional growth and development. For example, reflect on how the selected mindset and behavior standards serve as the foundation for instruction, for appraisal, and advisement in counseling. For step four, professional development plan, develop a yearly professional development plan to ensure your own engagement and professional growth opportunities related to relevant professional standards, competencies, and your own personal limitations. And for example, use the ASCA National Model's annual administrative conference template. Again, that's that formal meeting with an administrator the first 2 months of school. And this organizes the scheduling of professional development activities, and it shares how these activities help the school counseling program and the school reach its goals. And then lastly, evaluation initiatives. Use district or state evaluation initiatives for planning and assessment. For example, incorporate district school improvement goals as part of the professional development plan. So these would be the 5 steps in implementing these ASCA professional standards. All right, guys, kind of closing out for these week 2 activities. Obviously, you can see these steps on your syllabus, but just to have it in one place, hopefully you're watching this video that I'm providing, following along with the slideshow link that's provided. You want to respond to the discussion questions that are on the next slide. Make sure you're reading section 1, Define, and the ASCA National Model Framework book, as well as work on your school counseling interviews and the reflection paper that goes along with that. So the discussion questions for this week. First question, how do the ASCA student standards, mindsets, and behaviors provide a foundation to the work of the school counselor in classrooms, in small groups, and with individual students? So we're going to be learning about the 3 tiers, the multi-tier, multi-domain system of supports. So thinking about how our mindset and behavior student standards provide a foundation, whether large group classrooms, small groups, individual students. Question 2, describe some mindset and or behavior standards that you would feel most comfortable and or passionate in teaching through activities and lessons. So when I think about, for myself, I go back to the student standards, and I probably feel most comfortable and passionate about teaching a lot of the mindset standards. So when I think about belief and development of the whole self, sense of acceptance, respect, inclusion, positive attitude toward work and learning, self-confidence and ability to succeed, understanding post-secondary education, the mindsets I feel like are probably how I would answer what I feel most comfortable or passionate in teaching through activities, and what you would envision yourself feeling most comfortable at this point. And then what's ahead? So if we look at what will be next week, talking about the equity-centered lens and focusing on disabled students, the essential skills, we're coming back to those 4 major themes of leadership, advocacy, collaboration for systemic change. Week 5, looking at data and section 2, manage. And week 6, talking about ethics and professional branding. Our next group Zoom will be week 5 with data in section 2's manage. But I hope you guys have a great week and can really dig into this beginning of the National Model Framework, especially when we talk about the section of define and our student standards, as well as our ethical and professional standards. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.